It's okay. It's okay. Doesn't matter. He just turned it on. It's okay. I don't mind. As long as he turns it off. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hari 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 Gopi Jana Bhalabha Yadi Bharadhari 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 Jasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamana Tira Manachadi Jamana Tira Manachadi Tira Manachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hari. Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivirgacharya Astatarasata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Gaur Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is class number 7. I'm keeping track of how many classes it's going to take to cover this chapter. We're going to begin with verse number 11 and cover 3 verses this morning. Just a little quick review from yesterday. One who can experience the eternal soul within everyone's body certainly becomes dear to all living entities, since he sees everyone as qualitatively equal to himself. He does not envy anyone, nor try to lord it over any other living being. Being free from envy and a well-wisher of all, such a self-realized soul is naturally dear to everyone. So that's our journey, isn't it? And it's a nice outcome if we can reach that. Translation for text number 11. One who has transcended material good and evil automatically acts in accordance with religious injunctions and avoids forbidden activities. The self-realized person does this spontaneously, like an innocent child, and not because he is thinking in terms of material good and evil. Here's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's translation of the Sanskrit of this verse. One who has attained the transcendental platform beyond the influence of material dualities such as good and evil will automatically follow religious principles and avoid sinful acts. A self-realized soul acts in this way without separate endeavor, just like an innocent child, and not because he considers everything in terms of a materialistic conception of good and evil. And next is Bhaktisiddhanta's gloss of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Less intelligent people cannot act properly. Wise men who are beyond the concept of finding faults and qualities automatically give up activities that are prohibited by the scriptures, even though they no longer have such a dualistic outlook, and they automatically act in a way that is approved by the scriptures. As an innocent child acts spontaneously and not under the influence of duality, the actions of a wise man are also spontaneous. Pretty interesting. Children and wise men are, I see a difference. Purport. This is the BBT purport. One who has developed transcendental knowledge never acts whimsically. Srila Rupa Goswami describes two stages of devotional service, sadhana bhakti and raganuga bhakti. Raganuga bhakti is the stage of spontaneous love of Godhead, whereas sadhana bhakti means the conscientious practice of the regulative principles of devotional service. In most cases, one who is now enjoying transcendental consciousness has rigidly practiced the rules and regulations of devotional service. Thus, due to previous practice, one spontaneously avoids sinful life and acts in accordance with the standards of ordinary piety. This does not mean that a self-realized soul is consciously avoiding sin and pursuing piety. Rather, due to his self-realized nature, he spontaneously engages in the most exalted spiritual activities, just as an innocent child may spontaneously exhibit good qualities such as kindness, tolerance, and so on. Of course, they may not also. The spiritual platform is called Shuddha Sattva, or purified goodness, to distinguish it from the material mode of goodness, which is always, to some extent, polluted by the lower modes of passion and ignorance. Thus, if a man in material goodness appears to be most pious in the eyes of the world, we can only imagine the spotless character of a self-realized soul in purified spiritual goodness. Therefore, it is stated in Bhagavatam 5:18-12, celebrated verse, the Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavatya Kinchana verse. Sayar Vayar Ganais Tatra Samasate Sura. If one is a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, he will automatically exhibit all the exalted qualities of the demigod. Such manifestation of piety, purity, is spontaneous, as explained in this verse. Next is Bhaktisiddhanta's commentary on this verse. From the external point of view, an innocent child, not knowing the consequences of an action, may sometimes appear to reject sinful activities and be attracted to pious activities, as when a child spontaneously exhibits a generous nature. Similarly, transcendentalists do not become intoxicated by mundane knowledge. They are situated beyond the mentality of finding faults in qualities and realize that Krishna alone is the object of service. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary is short, and that's it for verse 11. One who has attained jnana acts as he pleases. The jnani, who has surpassed thinking in terms of good and bad, refrains from forbidden acts because of previous impressions of that nature, but without condemning such forbidden acts as bad. He generally engages in prescribed actions, but not thinking of them as good, just as an innocent child devoid of conceptions of decisions and lack of decision performs actions and refrains from certain acts. So this quickly. Going back a little bit, the advice that Krishna is giving to Uddhava is to rise above duality, rise above friend and enemy, rise above attachments and aversions, rise above, be situated in this Brahmabhuta stage, nasochati, nakangsati kind of idea. And in that state, mad bhaktim labhate param, when you will engage in fixing your mind upon me and engaging always in my service. Then backtracking a bit here is this injunctions, prohibitions thing found in the Vedas. Its purpose is to elevate one to the standard of goodness, where from the standard of goodness one can more easily access transcendence. Standing alone, goodness is not the goal. Then conversely, when one has reached this understanding, one can see like this, one can see the soul within, then those behaviors of good and the staying away from bad will naturally follow. Doesn't mean that they neglect them, it means that that's not how they're driven, essentially. Text 12. One who is the kind well-wisher of all living beings, who is peaceful and firmly fixed in knowledge and realization, sees me within all things. Such a person never again falls down into the cycle of birth and death. This is Jnana Mishra Bhakti. Bhakti mixed with knowledge, thus inducing or producing detachment so that one can be fixed in bhakti. This is Bhaktisiddhanta's translation of this verse. The self-realized souls who are firmly fixed in knowledge and realization, and who are equal to all living entities, knows this material world as a manifestation of my energy, and thus do not again become entangled in the bondage of material existence. And the only commentary is Bhaktisiddhanta's commentary. Self-realized souls see all objects of this world to be related to Krishna. They never fall into material existence on account of their spirit of enjoyment. They make friendship with all living entities, knowing them to be ingredients for Krishna's worship. They are naturally peaceful and undisturbed because of their expertise in the field of knowledge and its practical application. No mundane temptation can distract their mind from the lotus feet of Krishna. Those who fail to see this world as a house of happiness because of their unsuccessful attempt to enjoy this world engage in fruitive activities to achieve material enjoyment. But when they become disgusted with material enjoyment, they want to temporarily renounce such enjoyment. That is why Sri Gaurasundra has instructed about Phalgu Vairagya and Yukta Vairagya, which are confidential purports of Srimad Bhagavatam meant for the understanding of fortunate living entities. And in conclusion, text 13, Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, "O King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, thus instructed his pure devotee Uddhava, who was eager to receive knowledge from the Lord. Uddhava then offered obeisances to the Lord and spoke as follows." And Bhaktisiddhanta's translation, Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, "O King, after Lord Krishna instructed Uddhava in this way, the Mahabhagavata Uddhava, who had a desire to know the spiritual truth, offered obeisances to the Lord and spoke as follows." BBT purport. Uddhava is described here as tattvam jigyasu, or desiring to know the truth. It is clear from previous verses that Sri Uddhava is a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, and that he considers devotional service to Lord Krishna to be the perfection of life. Thus, the words tattvam jigyasuhu indicate that since Lord Krishna is about to leave the earth, Uddhava is most anxious to deepen his understanding of the Lord so that he may further advance in loving service at the Lord's lotus feet. Unlike an ordinary philosopher or scholar, a pure devotee is not eager to acquire knowledge for personal gratification. And there is a very short purport by Jiva Goswami from his Krama Sandarbha. Krama Sandarbha is verse by verse kind of commentary, and so far there's been very little Jiva Goswami commentary on this section, but here's one. Although he is a great devotee, Uddhava appears to inquire about the highest truth with respect for the Lord's teachings, and like a low person out of humility, though he has great qualification, he speaks because he is being left by the Lord. We can only imagine the emotions of Uddhava. Krishna is going to leave and he knows it, and he's not going to see him again. And he's his life and soul. So what's your inquiry when you have that understanding and the feelings connected with that understanding? We just, to reminder again, his chapter 6 questions, or please take me with you, and what's a very simple way to achieve you and achieve understanding of you for a person who's attached like me, materially attached. And So we're getting this picture of detached devotional service, Jnana Mishra Bhakti. And Uddhava is a pure devotee. It's not like he didn't know these things. But hearing, even when you know something, it's strengthening. It's also for our benefit. So here's a little text. There's 3 texts for text 11. One who has transcended material good and evil automatically acts in accordance with religious injunctions and avoids forbidden activities. The self-realized person does this spontaneously, like an innocent child, and not because he is thinking in terms of material good and evil. Nice painting. It has a signature at the bottom, so it's not just a photo, it looks a painting. Of course, Krishna's, that's our Photoshop. That's very nice. Also, in most cases, one who is now enjoying transcendental consciousness has rigidly practiced the rules and regulations of devotional service. Thus, due to previous practice, one spontaneously avoids sinful life and acts in accordance with the standards of ordinary piety. This does not mean that a self-realized soul is consciously avoiding sin and pursuing piety. Rather, due to his self-realized nature, he spontaneously engages in the most exalted spiritual activities. I don't know what that's a painting of. I'm thinking of Govardhan Hill. But there's no some kund in Govardhan Hill maybe. Anyway. And the last one for this morning. The words Tattvam Jigyasuhu indicate that since Krishna is about to leave the earth, Uddhava is most anxious to deepen his understanding of the Lord so that he may further advance in loving service at the Lord's lotus feet. Unlike an ordinary philosopher or a scholar, a pure devotee is not eager to acquire knowledge for personal gratification. We know that from first canto, when Krishna departed, Arjuna was in Dwarka. When the Prabhas battle between the Yadu dynasty members, Arjuna was in Dwarka. He didn't take part. Because when Krishna departed, just before Krishna departed, Daruka, his chariot driver, came, and he knew Krishna's going to leave. So it's another one of those, like here with Uddhava. And he was beside himself, who can imagine his emotion? And so Krishna gave him some service. And the particular service was 2 things. Please inform those who are remaining in Dwarka that the Yadu dynasty members are finished, and that I'm also going to depart. The second is, please inform them that in 1 week's time, the whole of Dwarka is going to be covered by the sea. So they should leave Dwarka pronto and go to an Indraprastha or Hastinapur. Go to the shelter of their ancestral, because everyone had been shifted from Mathura to Dwarka. Now it's shift from Dwarka, the remaining, shift from Dwarka back to not Mathura, but Indraprastha, because that's the capital, under the protection of the king. Maharaj Pariksit is the king. So that was Krishna's instruction, and so he knew how the pieces in the chessboard were going to move before they moved, because it was his plan. The whole thing is his leelas. He knows way ahead of time what's going to happen, and then he's enjoying, not just like an actor on a stage. Things are dynamically moving, and Krishna is participating and engaging others in his pastimes for his pleasure, for their pleasure. So the eagerness of in this case specifically Uddhava, I mean Arjun. Yeah, I was making the point when Arjun returned back to Hastinapur and informed Yudhishthira what happened, because there was some intuitive understanding Krishna is going to leave, go check things out. So Arjun came back devastated. We know this from Canto 1, and describing his feelings of affection for Krishna and separation from his object of affection in so many ways. And then when it came to remembering the instructions Krishna gave on the battlefield, the Bhagavad Gita instructions, he started to feel enlivened. Then he realized, wow, Krishna was preparing me to stay connected with him just by remembering his instructions. So in a similar fashion, that's what's going on here. It's not accumulation of knowledge for the sake of having knowledge or having information. It's attachment. And our reading, so initially our reading of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, etc., naturally it follows the way of our academic training, which is gather information and try to understand this and that information-wise. And if something doesn't match, then we ask how this is over here and that's over there. What's the information? How does this work? But the deeper sense, what this little section is saying, it's not just for commentary saying for personal gratification. It's for deepening the relationship with Krishna. And that's how we should be reading. You know, as we mature in bhakti, it becomes more as a relationship with Krishna in exchange, and being attached to Krishna in that way, through sound. Because we can access Krishna through sound. Even in our present state, even when we can't see Krishna. Prabhupada would say, some people ask, have you seen Krishna? Can you show me Krishna? Can you show me God? Because I want to experience. So can you show me God? And have you experienced? Then his explanation is before seeing, one has to hear. Nice example. Here inside the temple, we don't so much hear cars passing by. There are some places where you can hear cars passing by a lot, like 26 Second Avenue. You can hear the traffic going by. Prabhupada's giving class, beeping of horns and big trucks and things. And here is the garbage truck, that guy that comes along the side of the building. Wow, is that loud? Wow. Here comes the garbage truck. And he hasn't been around lately because the things are piled up over there. But so you may not, once you've seen the garbage truck and you hear the sound, you may not see the garbage truck, but you know it's the garbage truck. Not just the time of the day, but the noise, and when it's not crazy weather like this, it's pretty consistent what time of day around the time of day. Anyway, so Prabhupada's example is that he was hearing a class, he was speaking in Tokyo. When you hear the sound of cars passing, you may not see the car, but you know it's a car. And because you know it's a car, you know there's a driver. And there may also be passengers, although you can't see. So you say you want to see God, and you want to know if I've seen God. Well, here's how you start, is by sound. Then you said it again 3 more times. You hear the sound of the cars passing. You know there's cars. You know what that sound is. So our attachment for Krishna and our experience of Krishna begins with sound. And as that experience through sound becomes more matured, we experience Krishna in all features. Hearing through sound, then form, then qualities, and then pastimes just through sound. Now we're not so refined, to say the least. But that's where sound can carry us, especially if we're eager for it. Especially for that's Rupa Goswami's teaching. He says it's stronger, but we'll just say it's softer, eager. There's a yearning. This is our Festival of the Holy Name message. If there's yearning, when will that day be mine? When I'll feel a strong connection with Krishna. Then comes more than just yearning. It becomes really strong, enthusiasm, and then greediness. And then comes this spontaneous stage. That's what's being discussed here. When that spontaneous stage is reached, Prabhupada would sometimes speak of children in not glowing terms like this. Prabhupada would speak of children as being like animals. Right? And animals don't, but some animals may wag their tail instead of bite or something. They want something and they don't just growl and something. So a child may be very innocent in being generous, like it said. Sharing often is the other way. But in any case, when a child innocently, one way to say it's just the inbred nature for some previous lives, and the opposite is from previous lives. So, but it's not because they know this is the way you're supposed to be. I think that's the meaning. In the innocence of a child, it's not because they got hammered or conditioned to be good and don't be bad, like, by acculturation, but just in the innocence of a child, they may just act in this way and not in that way. At least the metaphor is like that. So the spontaneous devotion isn't governed by vidhis. It's governed by the heart. And those are 2 different stages of bhakti, as was explained here. So let's see if there's some discussion. Why don't you, in the future, do that ahead of time? In the future, so we don't have to go through this rigmarole. Anyone would like to discuss something? Jitendriya.
Years ago, I came across the Uddhava Gita,
You came across the which?
The Uddhava Gita.
Uddhava Gita, really?
And I was amazed that the price was only, is this working?
Yes, it's on. The green light is on.
Yeah.
You just have to hold it closer to your mouth.
Three Rivers in Badger, California, they had them for like $10, $12. I bought about 40 or 50 of them. And throughout the time, I've distributed most of them, but I still have a few left if anybody was interested. Bhakti Siddhanta and Vishwanath Chakravarti did the commentaries and the purports. And
That's what we're reading from. What you just said, we're reading from.
Yeah.
I have a digital copy of what you have a hard copy of.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. Like there's just 5 parts to the 11th canto, but I think there's 27 chapters.
No, it goes up to 27. It goes from chapter 7 to 27, or 29.
Okay.
7 to 29.
So if anybody would like a copy, I might be able to work something out for you. I think you'll appreciate it. And Prabhupada said on the back of the book, he said, the Western world is not aware of these books, but sometime they will. And I just thought that was a nice preempt to the book's publication.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Bhanu Swami's translation?
I believe he's in there, yeah.
But somebody was the translator. Somebody was the translator. Who? Okay. Oh, that's okay. I have a digital copy. I'm good. I think I have a hard copy too. But if not, I'll yes?
I'll check, Marge.
You'll check. If not, then okay.
Guru Maharaj, there was a statement in the commentary that you read that Falgu and Yukta Vairagya are confidential purports.
Are which?
Confidential purports meant for understanding of fortunate living entities. So I was bewildered by the word confidential because we read, pretty openly, Yukta Vairagya and Falgu Vairagya are discussed and explained. It doesn't seem to be one of those esoteric parts of what is explained to us.
If I understand your question correctly, it has something to do with the same use of chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita. It's open, and yet not many people understand it. So, Yukta Vairagya, most people don't understand it. It looks like attachment to them. Look, you're a sadhu and you've got Prabhupada has, flying around in airplanes and using technology and, riding in cars and living, Yukta Vairagya life. So it's not easily understood in that sense. Most people don't understand it properly. But they understand the Falgu Vairagya as Vairagya. That's it.
Guru Maharaj, verse 12, there was a statement, in most cases, one who is now engaged in devotional service has rigidly practiced the rules and regulations. I was curious if you would explain, there are other cases that are just spontaneous bhaktas that, reach perfection without rules and regulations.
You want to know, is it possible, I'm not that you're hankering for the option yourself, but is it possible for someone to come to the spontaneous stage without following rules and regulations?
Yes.
That's what you want to know? Kripa Siddhi. Possible.
I was also curious, since spiritual life begins with sound.
Yes.
And it's the most, it's the element that awakens us. Is sound also the first ingredient that manifests?
Yes. Prior to creation, there's sound. It's a scriptural fact, and Prabhupada would emphasize it from time to time. How important is sound? We don't even have stuff without sound. What to speak of spiritual consciousness? Okay, we're going to go online. Stira, over there. She's waiting for us to call on her. So,
I've been thinking about being fruitive versus being genuine.
true to your word.
Sorry?
True to your word.
Fruitive.
Fruitive. Okay.
Fruitive. Being fruitive versus being genuine. And then I feel at my stage, I'm just like used to doing stuff. So instead of doing stuff in the area of making, say, progress in my job or things like that, I start doing stuff. Okay, it looks like devotional service, but then internally the consciousness is not so much driven towards make Krishna be pleased. It's still coming from that tendency of like doing stuff. So I'm looking for something where how is it that I can make a shift in my consciousness so I'm not fruitive, but then I'm at least trying to be like genuine?
Welcome to the transit lounge or the liminal space. And it's a little bit like Snehavali's questions yesterday about Raganuga Bhakti. So we follow what you should do, or what a person in that transit lounge space should do, is with faith continue in the vidhis of sadhana bhakti, like this verse, a pure devotee is not eager to acquire knowledge for personal gratification, rather is interested in advancing in loving service at the Lord's lotus feet. So you engage in your hearing, chanting, reading with that purpose. So the vidhis, this is, 10:14:3. Jnane prayasa udapasya namanta eva verse. That's the sanmukaritam bhavadiya vartan. Just dedicate yourself to the messages heard from authoritative sources, proper sources, like the Bhagavatam, for the purpose of strengthening your loving relationship with Krishna. And then you go into that other zone, that liminal zone. Even doing those things has its, acquire knowledge for personal gratification tendency, the mix. But the direct activities of bhakti give strength to the other forms of bhakti that are not in and of themselves direct, but add to the realization. Read carefully the Bhaktisiddhanta's purport to text 61 of Brahma Samhita, and you'll find that those indirect activities are as purifying as the direct activities. Or say it differently, until the indirect activities are surcharged, powered by the direct activities, one will stay on the, stuck space, the transit lounge space. So there's some hankering for the transcendental through the regulative principles, regulative activities of sadhana bhakti, and the dedication to hearing with the devotional purpose. And then the bhakti creeper will grow nicely. And in due course of time, naturally, that bhakti impetus takes hold in the worldly activities of life. Naturally. Gradually. And consciously. Not automatically in the sense that it's a vending machine, but automatically in the sense that it's like the unfolding, the natural unfolding of the creeper of bhakti. It enters its presence into one's ordinary activities, and then they become no longer ordinary activities. But it's organic. It doesn't just like changing clothes and then now you got a new look to yourself. It's internal. Yeah. Okay, online.
Shalini Talwar asks.
That's Snehavali.
Thank you. Snehavali. My question is in continuation of Sri Radhika Mataji's question. Yesterday morning, she inquired about Lord Indra troubling the devotees for his benefit. You very kindly responded that if the person's actions are related to bhakti, then Indra will not create obstacles. I'm thinking of Prithu Maharaj's pastime. He was performing sacrifices for the benefit of his citizens, and it is said that anyone who works for the benefit of others gets the blessings of demigods, as mentioned in Dhruva Maharaj's pastime. So Prithu Maharaj's actions are not considered as bhakti, or Indra was again assisting in the pastime? How can we understand this? Thank you.
You read Prabhupada's book so carefully. It's really a great virtue. Continue to read that section, and what Prithu is told is, you don't need to do this. The magic number of 100 isn't required. You're already elevated, and you have already elevated the others. So, if Indra's got the heebie-jeebies, just don't do 100. He was protected. He wasn't interfered with. It wasn't an obstacle. He was already there. Huh? That's it. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.